Billy, why should U.S. investors consider diversifying not just their portfolios, but also the custody of their assets internationally?
Well, a lot of U.S. investors, they often think about asset allocation, but they focus on the asset itself, and they're very home biased. So they make the investments globally, but still in U.S. dollar, in a U.S. bank. Diversifying to a non-U.S. jurisdiction provides them diversification, but also hedge the risk, changes in political environment, regulatory framework, which grants them that diversification and approach to investing.
And what makes Switzerland specifically such a compelling destination for custody diversification? It's famous. People want to have their money in Switzerland. Tell me why.
Well, let's start with the currency. Over the last 40 years, the Swiss franc has increased versus other currencies. Look at their government, very stable. And the regulatory framework, solid. That provides security and stability to clients. But more interesting is the access to local investing. Many US banks are not able to provide access to local currencies, local assets in local markets. Switzerland allows them to diversify in multiple currencies, but access the local securities traded in the local exchanges. That grants them a different approach to investing.
Can you talk a bit more about currency diversification
Absolutely.
in protecting a client's long-term wealth?
Absolutely. Think about a client making all their wealth in US dollars, and then they put all their money into a US bank. And they think about asset allocation, and they start investing globally in ETFs. They're still very much driven by US dollars. When you look at investing, for example, in Switzerland, you look at a clients looking to invest in Swiss francs, euros, Japanese yen, in local securities. That allows them to completely diversify their risk. If market moves in this side of the world one way, they move different another way. That allows them to hedge their overall risk.
A lot of high net worth investors also put gold or precious metals in Swiss bank accounts. Yeah. Why is this an advantage as opposed to holding it here?
So if you think about transparency, pricing, execution, but more important, reporting. When you put money into an account and you want to have reporting very easy and accessible, you want to be able to also comply with your local tax regulatory framework. Switzerland provides the framework not only to invest in local currencies, in gold, have access to the vault and see physical hold their gold in their hands, but at the end of the year, have a nice tax report and compliance with US regulatory framework. They have the experience to do it.
And then finally, when you talk to advisors about diversifying internationally, what do they say? What's the common response from advisors when you're speaking to them about this type of strategy?
So the first concern is, are we complying with the regulatory framework? That's the number one concern. That's why it's important that when they partner with an international custodian bank, that the bank has experience. We've done it for more than 20 years. We comply with both the SEC and FINMA, which are the two biggest regulatory frameworks. We need to make sure that clients have their tax reporting on time every February, so they can file for taxes in April. That is important. So experience is the most important thing to have access there.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on and talking about it.
Thank you.